That is James Mennie. He is over at the Montreal Gazette. So, Jim, might as well start with the new Léger poll out. It looks like the cakewalk for the PQ is, well, I know it's early, but is anything but. And maybe the biggest surprise here is how well the Liberals did.
Yeah, I mean, you know what's really funny, Aaron, is we're looking at this poll. With all due respect to Jean-Marc Léger, whose poll this is, I have to tell you, there seems to be almost an attempt at some mise en scène to recycle or rehabilitate the CAQ and say, well, this is turning into a leadership horse race between Bernard Drinville and Christine Fréchette. That same poll, which actually has two hypothetical questions, and which is getting a lot of attention, ignores the actual poll itself, which, quite frankly, as you quite rightly point out, and it was conducted last Thursday and Friday, the Liberals gained 6 points compared with last December, and the PQ dropped by 3, which basically has them 6 points apart. The PQ continues to lead with 32, which is majority territory. 26% for the Libs. I'm sure they have a great deal of work to do with the Francophone voters, but you don't get 26% just on the island of Montreal. Clearly, the party is getting to, interest in the party is going to trickle off the island into the regions. And remember, we all know that Charles Milliard seems to be the uncrowned leader, but he still isn't the leader. He has not received that much press coverage, and in fact, he even mentioned it on the show that it seems a bit odd. He's being very quiet. And in the middle of this apparent, this marvelous, this leadership race with the CAQ, they dropped 2 points. They're 17 points, which is like 9 points behind the Liberals. And yet, remember, we're still stuck with them until October. So this is, I find that is the most remarkable elements of this particular poll. That it really seems, Aaron, this race is wide open. That I think once Jean Milliard, I guess he'll wait until after February 13th when nominations close for the leadership, that we'll start hearing more and more about him. But you and I have also discussed how in recent weeks the Liberals, even though we've got Marc Tanguay, who's the interim leader, he's been going after the PQ big time, and he's had a lot of help from Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, who's been making pretty ridiculous, pretty disconnected statements about whether it's about sovereignty, whether it's about the attitude that he has towards Mark Carney, the Canadian Prime Minister, even though Mark Carney is the most popular politician of any stripe in Quebec. This is the guy that PSPP decides to go after. It's not smelling very good, Aaron, to tell you the truth. And meanwhile, I'm not entirely sure, despite all the attention being paid or being the coverage being given to this CAQ leadership race, I think one thing that's coming out loud and clear is that your politician's popularity is based on how much exposure they get. So, for example, we've got Bernard Drinville and Christine Fréchette who are vying for the leadership of the CAQ. Well, they've been in the news left, right, and center. Okay, and only that said, though, for Fréchette, 43% of respondents don't have an opinion on her. 27 don't have an opinion on Drinville. What's amazing here is 64% don't have an opinion on Milliard, even though he's the apparent leader in waiting. And guess what? The party just moved up by 6 points.
Yeah.
Once again, it's an interesting phenomenon. I'm not saying there's going to be a Liberal. It's early days. I'm not saying there's a blowout, but what I am saying for sure is that we are seeing a cleared chessboard, if you will. The only real certainties seem to be that Québec solidaire seems to be on its last legs. And despite all of his hard work, Éric Duhaime with the Quebec Conservatives, he's got 14%. Maybe he'll be able to spin that into something higher between now and October. But the fact is, this idea that a PQ win, that this poll, if nothing else, Aaron, shows that the PQ is far from being a government in waiting. And in fact, it shows that this election would apparently be the PQ's to lose.
But to your point, Jim, I mean, a 9-point swing, 6 up, 3 down, that seems, that's highly unusual to say the least, is it not?
Well, yeah, but on the other hand, if I was a Liberal organizer, I'd be sending a personally engraved letter of thanks to Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon.
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, and we've had this conversation on the show, that on the one hand, the reasonable, sober, and once again, relatively speaking, compared to the CAQ, anybody looks good. right? And here's a guy who suddenly starts, it began with his absolutely ridiculous statements about cultural organizations betraying Quebec because they actually welcomed a new federal culture minister.
Right.
And it just kind of spiraled downhill from there. And I think, and indeed, Alex James was going after PSPP and basically saying this guy is arrogant, he's disconnected. And I got to tell you, given his recent comments, I can't argue with that assessment. And I think a lot of Quebecers, now that they're beginning to pay attention, are seeing that, maybe there are other options out there. Will it be the CAQ, Aaron? I sincerely don't think so. I think no matter, and I think, speaking as Quebec Anglophone, I look at Christine Fréchette, as I've said on the show, I don't know why we're suddenly saying, this could turn everything around. I don't think she's going to turn anything around. The CAQ is the CAQ. The CAQ is the government which for 8 years ran one of the most divisive regimes in Quebec history. And if nothing else, this leadership contest seems to be more of a magic show competition. Who's going to make the last 8 years disappear more effectively? Christine Fréchette or Bernard Drinville? Drinville, as you may have noticed this weekend, he's already cutting ties with François Legault. I had nothing to do with this. We lost contact with the people, blah, 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 blah. Even though the poll that you and I have been discussing right now suggests that if Bernard Drinville was leading the CAQ, they would be polling 15% compared to 25% with Christine Fréchette at the helm. And indeed, Fréchette CAQ would be 5 points behind the PQ and 4 points ahead of the Liberals, as opposed to Drinville, who would be, my God, like 11 points behind the PQ and good Lord, 9 points behind the Liberals. It's like, honestly, the writing seems to be on the wall for Bernard Drinville. We'll see how long he will last. Maybe he'll take it. He'll go the distance with it. But right now, the numbers are not on his side. And quite frankly, I think we have to be very careful, whether as journalists or commentators or simple consumers of information. We must be very careful not to get caught up in this. Well, it looks like the CAQ's going to be, going through the old, recycling machine, and we'll have a brand new shine. No, we won't. It's the same one. And in fact, it's going to be so the same that Jonathan Julien, who was a cabinet minister, he was the minister responsible for energy. He's announced, and I don't know, I'm sorry, I can't say whether he wants to spend more time with his family, but he will not be seeking re-election in October. So, this whole thing, there is a kind of mournful predictability about it, Aaron, and I'm just wondering how soon the landscape is going to change. And I'm not, people listen to the show know I ain't no cheerleader for the Quebec Liberals either, but it seems to me that there is a thirst for change. I think there's a suggestion in these numbers that people are perhaps willing to give the Quebec Liberals a chance. When I say people, I mean, I hate to say it this way, but the people who decide elections, the people in the regions, the people who actually used to vote Liberal, may be thinking, maybe, this guy. But once again, we have to wait and see, because let's face it, we thought that Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon was pretty well bulletproof, and we've seen how he's able to do a Thelma and Louise off the side of the cliff. Let's see what Charles Mignard, remember, people are saying, well, the guy's never been a politician. What a fresh approach. Well, sometimes that's a problem too, Aaron. As we all know, we've seen in the past where people who have no political experience commit gaffes that will dog them throughout a campaign. So once again, we have to wait and see. We have, another 2 weeks until the nomination period is closed, although it looks like Milliard's got a lock on this. But bottom line here, this story, quite frankly, is just beginning.
So, just to go back to your point about Bernard Drinville, I saw clips from that, presser he held over the weekend as well. And, what you just said is stuck out to me as well. This idea that you go right after the premier, it's kind of like, we know he did a lot of things wrong. I'm like, whoa, wait a sec. You're the same guy still in that party, dude.
Exactly.
And that's what he spent his time doing. I mean, it seems to me, Jim, Bernard Drinville is in this for Bernard Drinville and nobody else.
Well, let's go back to 2015, my friend, when Bernard Drinville was seeking the leadership of the PQ, and it became apparent he was not going to beat. He was light years away from beating Pierre-Carl Pellado. And I remember that press conference, and I don't know if you recall, he looked like he was going to lose it. He looked completely devastated that this was like he had rolled the dice. And I got to tell you, I was very surprised he came back. He was, God help us, working on talk radio, and he was convinced to return to politics as a CAQ MNA, and clearly he'd been promised a cabinet post, which he got. But it's like there's almost this kind of desperation to suddenly change the clothes, suddenly repaint the place, renovate what is left of the old Hotel CAQ, and make people think that this is a new product, when in fact we are discovering every day, and very painfully, and in some cases very expensively, that it is not. It is the same tedious, incompetent, petty, divisive, and fear-mongering government that it's always been.
All right, Jim, we got to wrap it up. I did want to just point out one thing. So we talked on Friday, or I guess Thursday it was, right? The Donald Trump Bombardier situation. He hasn't taken that back. But I did want you to hear, Jim, our new feature, right? Which is what Donald Trump meant to say. Okay, you seem quite excited by it.
Oh, I am because, and I'm so glad that we decided to change his middle initials to AI. Yeah. But let's go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, Bombardier's up about almost 2% today, so it's gained some of that back. But so what Donald Trump meant to say in that charge or challenge to Bombardier, but 50% tariffs, turns out he meant to say this.
I apologize for scaring the crap out of Canada again with this whole Bombardier thing. The truth is, some people from Gulfstream came to see me, bought me lunch, and said they'd buy one of my Trump watches if I told Canada to certify their jets or else. So I did. But I'll change my mind by the middle of the week, so I wouldn't worry too much. Signed, Donald A.I. Trump.
There you go, Jim. So
I got to tell you, this guy is even 10 times funnier than Donald J.
We'll find out what happens by the middle of the week. Wouldn't it be good if that actually came to pass?
Oh, yeah.
Jim, thank you.
Not the best.